So, now that No Time to Die has had some time to sink in, and with more than enough concerning stuff going on in the world right now, I thought now would be a perfect time to take our minds off of things and talk about other things that also really concern us. Bond 26. And just share some of my quick thoughts and hopes for the future of the franchise. We've now entered an interesting period of not knowing anything. And all we can really do in this period is speculate. Who will be the next Bond? When will the next Bond film release? Who will direct the next film? Etc. I feel my hopes on a lot of these matters are far from what I realistically hope they are going to do. But for all those that are interested, here are my quick thoughts and hopes for the future. So, the next James Bond. This has been a subject for years, even during the Daniel Craig era. I feel like we've seen all of the faces countless times already. And my thoughts are, we'll probably get someone completely out of left field. Possibly someone we've never even heard about at this point. But out of the usual suspects that you usually find on these lists, let me talk about the ones I really like and would love to see as my Bond. So, first off, Henry Cavill.
Is there anything else I can do for you?
It's a fine bottle of champagne. Be ashamed to drink it alone.
I'm still on duty, Mr. Devaney.
Pity.
But my shift ends in 5 minutes.
Sure we can find something to do for 5 minutes?
Yes, you've gathered it from my little opening montage. This dude, to me, just screams James Bond in the same way that Brosnan did in the 80s. Everybody could already picture him as Bond before he even became Bond. Henry has that same factor. And I love what he did with Napoleon Solo in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. To me, a perfect audition for a fun, light-hearted, yet cool and suave Bond type. However, in Mission Impossible Fallout, he played a villain. He also definitely proved he can do the gritty and more serious badass stuff as well. I think you can go both ways with Henry. Again, yes, he's too much of a star, and yes, he's been Superman, and yes, I agree, it will likely not happen. He's gonna get older and yada yada yada. All I'm saying is Henry Cavill as Bond would totally get me excited.
Oh, Henry, I don't know if you know this, but the Bond position is vacant. I have to ask you, are you in the running? Have you put yourself out of the running? If they came a-calling, would you say yes?
I would definitely have a conversation. I think there's...
Lunch? Possibly a lunch?
Lunch. Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, there's very, very early conversations happening up top at MGM and with Barbara and Mike, but there's no list as such yet. So I
There's
think,
no list, Tom.
I was like,
There's
how
no
do
list.
you know that?
I read it on the internet. Google it.
Googled it.
Yeah, right.
Henry Cavill, James Bond.
Yeah. Is Henry Cavill next Bond?
Speaking of A-list stars likely to never become Bond, but ones I can totally see as Bond, Tom Hardy. I already did a complete video on my thoughts on Tom Hardy as 007 a while back, and how I felt a version of his Bond could totally work. You see, Hardy wouldn't just be Tom Hardy in a suit, no. He's one of those actors that completely transforms his look and would somehow become Ian Fleming's James Bond 007. I think in combination with his favorite director Nolan in possibly a trilogy that would be released in rapid succession to counter the aging of the actor and stuff, I could totally see a gritty version of Tom Hardy kick ass and get those box office numbers up sky high while he's at it. So yes, still to this day, Tom Hardy as James Bond any day of the week. Again, and I probably can't stress this enough, I don't see an A-list star actually getting the part though. So out of the usual suspects on these lists, the more unknown Aidan Turner is probably the final one that also always really appealed to me. I haven't even seen him in much personally, but at the very least, this dude has the look, the style, and the Connery-like brown eyes. I can really see it. Out of the usual tipped actors I don't want to see as Bond, I would pick Tom Hiddleston and Idris Elba. Yeah, no, they are both just far removed from my idea of what James Bond should be, in my humble opinion. Do I feel Eon might do a radical change and change up Bond's gender or race or sexuality? Possibly. I mean, changing characters to black seems to be popular these days. I can see the allure. And I felt both Jeffrey Wright and Naomi Harris were my favorite incarnations of Felix Leiter and Moneypenny respectively. But with Bond, personally, I wouldn't want to change too much about him and just keep him close to the source material. I wouldn't want a female Bond or an Asian Bond or Arabian or transgender or whatever other progressive road you can think of either. I feel all of those aspects would just pull apart the essence of the character and the intention of Ian Fleming. Again, that's just my opinion. Do I feel Eon might make changes up on these grounds? Probably. I definitely feel this will be the first time they are auditioning actors from a broader diversity. Sure, but to me, progress shouldn't always be shoehorned in just because it's a popular thing to make a statement these days. It will be cool though to see the announcement for our next Bond actor. To me, that's more exciting than getting the next president for the United States or the next pope. Wouldn't it be cool if we got the announcement this year? You know, with the whole 60-year anniversary and all. I doubt we will get it so soon though, but hey, one can dream. We all know how things ended for Craig's Bond and how inevitably you need to reboot Bond for the next movie and start with a complete clean slate. How should the filmmakers go about this? What direction do I feel the franchise should move into next? Let's talk about the tone for the next couple of films. The Craig ones were mostly gritty, serious, emotional. Ever since Kingsman and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. reintroduced the fun and cool lighthearted side of the spy genre in a modern way, I felt it could be time again for Bond to return to having a little bit more fun as well. We've had a lot of gritty these days. I feel the filmmakers fear that by going down the path of less serious Bond films, they may end up feeling more like self-parody. But really, watching films like these, you really feel like, oh man, I wish the Bond films would try to go down that road again. I was in the cinema recently watching The King's Man, and after that movie I was in the toilet and I overheard some guys talk about the film. They were both like, man, this was a cool movie. Remember when James Bond was like this? Oh man, Kingsman movies really have more flair and style and damn, they're so original. I wish Bond was doing stuff like that. And then they left the toilet. And I was left there, overthinking this as the big Bond fan that I am, almost wanting to engage into the conversation, but feeling like, you know, these guys have a point. For the longest time, I felt like Bond should always be contemporary and update with the times. But in recent years, I feel modern day Bond movies seem to really focus a lot on surveillance, high-tech villains in the shadows, etc. We've kind of been there, done that.
I'm frightened because our enemies are no longer known to us.
The enemy is just floating in the ether.
They do not exist on a map. They're not nations.
But we used to be able to get into a room with the enemy. We could look him in the eye.
Can you see a face, a uniform, a flag? No. Our world is not more transparent now. It's more opaque.
We don't even know what they're after.
It's in the shadows. That's where we must do battle.
I'd like to see a completely different approach on that front. But what can you really do? Modern day spy movies should feature technology, and in order for villains to remain mysterious in our world, They should be in the shadows, bypassing all of the surveillance we have around and all of the intelligence agencies and stuff. So, yeah, I get it. This is why, in recent years, I felt like the updating and reinventing of Bond could also work through a period piece. Get rid of all the politics and sensitive stuff going on nowadays and reset Bond back into the 1950s and 1960s. You know, not forever, but maybe in a planned out trilogy. I've said it before, get a guy like Christopher Nolan on the job and I bet it would work and it would sell. Wouldn't it be cool to see the old school cars and gadgets return, the fashion, the espionage stories that feel like action-packed spy thrillers? And you can still work in the moral messages of today and apply that to our world, even if they wouldn't be set in there. I feel like the sensitive political era we live in today, with the whole woke stuff, doesn't have the most positive effect on movies of today. And maybe this is just my Dutch down-to-earthness and being pretty clueless and oblivious to it all, but to me, it's like some people pretend they have a license to be offended nowadays. I don't know. So there too, I think a period piece could have a fresh effect. People wouldn't have to automatically be offended if a person is smoking or polluting the climate or whatever because it fits the era. You know, I don't know. I think the most valid point going against doing a period piece right now is the product placement deals. Especially companies that have modern day products that they would like to sell, they would have a hard time fitting their stuff into a period piece. So, again, I'm just mostly sharing hopes instead of actual predictions here. I just hope that whatever direction they decide to take next doesn't go overboard in the political correctness. As for who should direct the next Bond film, you know, I really don't have that much of a wish list on that front. I mentioned Nolan before simply because he's mentioned that he is a Bond fan. We know he has plenty of ideas for stuff that we've never seen before.
Have you two ever loosely joked about Bond together? Obviously, you're a lover of Bond. You've talked about one day wanting to do a Bond film. His name is always in the hopper.
Yeah.
Would he be a good fit for a Christopher Nolan Bond film?
Oh, he'd be amazing. I mean, no, he really would. And, you know, I've always loved the character. And over the years, I've met with Barbara and Michael, who are just the most incredible people.
I mean, do you have it in your mind, if and when that opportunity came about, like what you would want to do with a character that hasn't been done?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've put myself to sleep at night for the last 40 years trying to figure that out. But as you do as a filmmaker, you always think about other people's movies, how much better you would make them.
But I'm curious, I mean, without revealing too much, like what is the unmined territory of Bond at this point, you think?
I would never tell you that. Those are the only cards I hold.
Oh,
There's any chance I have of scoring the gig is
Okay.
to, you know, imply that I have some extraordinary thing that nobody else has thought of.
And we all know Nolan would hit it out of the park and he would nail that shit. Eon just phoned the guy already. We want to see a Nolan Bond movie. Get it done. But it would also be cool to see the return of Martin Campbell. After seeing how he launched the Bond movies of the Brosnan era with GoldenEye and the Craig era with Casino Royale, it would be cool to see him try a third time with the latest actor. You never know if it would be another smash hit like those two were, of course, but going by his record, I feel I would be in safe hands. What about Danny Boyle, who was originally going to direct No Time to Die? Should he deserve another shot for future Bond films? I'd still be interested to see some of the ideas he and John Hodge would have had for the franchise. Whoever they pick, I hope we don't have to wait another 6 years or so before we actually get it. During these times, there is a lot to be speculating and talking about for our hopes of the franchise. So I'd be really interested to hear your guys' opinions and hopes and thoughts on the future of our beloved series too. Whatever happens, for those that feel concerned about the future of the series, let's not forget that usually Eon do have the wishes of the fans in their minds at the forefront. So here is to a bright future of Ian Fleming's James Bond 007.